month of marriage, I actually started studying. So I started my MBA about 10 days after we got married. So this was what our first month of marriage looked like. We had spoken about it, and I think for me, I kept saying I knew I wanted to further my education, but I also said, you know what, let's do it before we even start building a family. When it's just two of us, we can manage it. And boy, I mean, it was, you go, so I was studying part-time. So you go from being at the office at 5 p.m. running for your classes, then you're on campus until 9, sometimes 10, 11, depending if there's group projects. So that was us being married for the first month. And Jesse was very supportive in the beginning. I mean, he would be constantly on campus, you know, would work from campus and say, I'll wait for you. We also had only one car. So transport wise, you know, I'm studying in Senton, we live in Midrand. So the whole logistics was like, okay, let him stay on campus as he wait for me. So it wasn't glamour. So again, there wasn't, our first month of marriage, there's no honeymoon. We never went on honeymoon. So it was again very raw, and I feel like it was a representation of what was going to follow. It set the tone for what our marriage up until now was going to be. Hardships from day one of being married.
Yeah. So I think just to take it from there, organizing our wedding was a handful. We had a lot of people, family, friends that traveled, great distances to be with us, and our wedding was actually during the Christmas time. So they literally spent Christmas with us, and it was like Christmas and New Year's. When we got married, on my side, I was burning out because I had understood that people had made so much investment to come. So we made so many plans and so many arrangements, accommodation, transportation, touristic. So we were so concerned, I was so concerned on so many people that my wedding or our time of getting married was a nightmare for me, and it drained me emotionally, physically. So as soon as Steffi started her school, I was just exhausted, but I knew that we had agreed before we got married that she's going to start with the MBA, and I was telling her, I'm behind you. Of course, after the I do's, you need to show that sense of support. So I believed that this was going to be something incredible for our family. She was going to take us to the next level, and that required me being behind her. So I was extremely supportive, and we started realizing small things, like we could not cook because we were both at school. So we used to have a lot of takeouts or make sure that we prepare something during the weekends. So there were a lot of things that had just become, we're focusing on the big picture. So it was quite difficult.
I think fighting takes a different dimension when you've made that vow. Because I think when you're dating, there's always that, you fight and then I could be out. I had a complete life before I met Jesse. I was a full person, and you fight, and you always have that one foot out to say, I could walk out anytime. But then there's that commitment and that understanding that you've made that vow in front of God, in front of your families. And Jesse touched on, we were very self-aware of the sacrifices that our family did to put that event together. So we were very conscious about it. And then you start fighting into marriage, and you're like, there's no way out. This is for life. Regardless of whatever happened, you need to make it work. And I think for me it was difficult because all of that was also happening in it was still a new environment, you know. By then, yes, it's December 2016, but I had been in SA for a year and a half, and I've always been someone very dependent on not only my mother, but my girlfriends. So I find myself in a way dealing with all of that emotions. We fight, but I don't have any way to drive and go and, you know, unload and cry and, you know, fill your cup, and then you go and you fight again, and you say we can do that. There was no way. So as much as it was difficult, it was also a blessing. I look back and I ask myself, had we built this marriage in an environment that was familiar, whether it was Canada for me, whether it was Burundi for him because his parents and his sister Garants were in Burundi, had we been in those environments where we are that comfortable, would we have lasted? I'm not sure. And that's just me being honest, because we fought and we were conscious that there was no other way. We had to figure it out. We were living in a 2-bedroom apartment where there's not even sleep on the couch, or I don't want to see your face. Like, everything happened in such a small space. So it was hard, but it's also a blessing when I look back. So that's for me. The dimension on how to deal with fight was different.
Living together before getting married helped a lot, because
so it was what, 6 months?
6 months before we got married.
6 to 3 months before the wedding.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in our culture, it's a taboo. It's a no-no.
Yeah.
So already when we were living together, we were just saying, we're trying to justify it to our parents, just saying that we're trying to save money. We're trying to actually get to understand each other, and then from that, we are planning to get married. And even in how I proposed to Steffi, it also somehow indicates my state of mind, because I always tell her that for me, I'm a person that I do big gestures, but our proposal was sitting on the only couch that we had at home. It was like a red couch.
Yes. And
it was like a fold over that you could become a bed. And we're sitting there, and I told her, my friend, we love each other. And the reality is, I can't afford an engagement ring. At this moment, no, I can't. But the thing is, we're getting married in December. What do you think of that plan? And she was like, I think that's a pretty good one. And
let's call the parents.
That's how
it happened.
We were not even sharing a drink.
Yeah,
we were having a conversation in the evening, and we agreed that the way forward, because we were also concerned about our parents, saying that how long is this thing going to last? Yeah? So for me, that perspective made me understand who Steffi is and who I was in that space. So it made me realize we were very real. And I think we fought then. We had so many disagreements. There's a person that we stayed with, which was the best person, Ornella, which was fighting with Steffi before I moved in. And the moment I moved in, she told me, good luck. And I was like, Ornella, the difference is, this is my wife to be. So there's not going to be fighting. Oh, no. She came back and I was like, what you said is gospel to my ears.
Yeah.
Because we had the same fights that she was having with Ornella. And when we just got married, it was that but with a lot of other things, insecurities, understanding that you don't have a way out anymore. This is life. So, yeah.
For better or worse. So definitely everything in Jesse's life is slow motion. Like everything, guys. So again, going back to what I said earlier, we only had one car. So he had to drive me every morning either to work or to the Hull train to catch the train that would take me to Sandton to work. And guys, every morning in this household is like an event. Like it's like something that catches us by surprise. Like, I mean, I knew he was taking time, and you can tell he's a good looking proper guy, like he takes care of himself, but that comes at a cost. Like, it takes 2 hours to get ready. And you know what? We've been married now for 4 years in a couple of weeks, and every morning still feels like it's a new, like it's a surprise for, like I still, it's that one thing that still has not sinked in my brain. Like, how can someone shower, get dressed for 2 hours? And I'm not even understating. There's no understatement. It's the real, like that was a shock for me. So that is the one thing, and I'm sure he has a lot to say about me, but for me it's still the biggest thing. I'm still trying to adjust.
So the one thing that I just wanted to add to what you're saying is I have to teach her that your back actually needs lotion. Lotion is something that's very important for your back.
Oh, please.
And it has to be 2 layers of lotion. So she's trying to make this thing sound like it's almost like a whole thing of like me being, I just take care of my body, and I also was trying to impose and trying to teach her how to take care of her body. So
he says I don't shower because I'm not to that standard. 2 hours,
I think that's for another episode. Because,
no, I'm just saying the truth. Yeah, I mean, that's how it is.
It's quite scary.
Yeah.
Like, we have to speak about it some other time, elaborate on it. But
so what was
with
the surprise for
Steffi,
you?
with the surprise was, man, Steffi was so upfront the moment we got to know each other in terms of saying, I don't cook, I don't clean, I don't. So she laid it out, and she's like, I'm not the girl that you are going to get married to, and you're going to expect meals, you're going to expect the house to be tidy. She's like, for me, I work hard. I invest my time in my work, and I totally indulge myself in that, and I am great at it. And because I'm great, I will afford. And thank God we're in Africa, because we've got a lot of people to empower and to give the chance to actually assist us with those items. So for me, I heard it, and I was like, man, I love strong, very determined, beautiful woman, just women that can tell you what they think. I was like, just given the opportunity of just saying I do, I'll be the luckiest person. But what I had at the back of my mind was, after I do, there's a few things that are going to change, and maybe making a meal for Jess
once in a while
is something that she's going to say, like, surprise, my love. And then that never happened. So that was like a shock. Like, for her to have said this to me and to live it, it's something that we even fight about until today.
Yeah.
Because for me, I always tell her, I know you don't like doing these things, but aren't you going to surprise me? Like, you know what I like. So ultimately, you're going to prepare something that actually is like showing that sense of love. And I love food, good food. So she has been consistent. That's what shocked me. Consistency. Yes, the consistency.
Sorry. But what is a good good surprise? Like, what is something
Yeah, what
that
are
was
some
like
good surprises?
Okay, sorry. So we didn't go in the good. The good surprise. I have my parents. I have my sisters, which are the people that I can say have been the most consistent throughout my life, and the amount of sacrifices that Steffi did for me when I did not necessarily have both my feet on the ground, in terms of making me comfortable when financially I was struggling, and to make me feel like I will never lack, is something that I appreciated from her, and she did it without any complaints. It's something for me that I sat back and I said, this is something that I am getting at no cost, but I know it's worth everything in today's world. When a woman, most women are looking for that security, and that security is through the guy. So for me, I was going through my battles, and she was able to say, I have got us. So that was a surprise, and that surprise still happens up to today, by the way. Which is a great surprise. Yes. So I'm very thankful.
And for you,
Yeah.
Steffi?
For me, I think just his ability to get invested in anything I do. Because again, I think I come from a family where I've always been spoiled, because I took a lot of space in my family, and everyone knew what activity I was involved in, and they were invested in it. And I don't think I was expecting that from him, but really Jessy would get invested in anything that I did. Like, from a school perspective, I'll never forget how when I was applying for my MBA, I did a formal admission, application letter, the typical, ABC student. I went on Google, found the templates, then structured it. Jessy read it and said, no. Where is your story in all of this? Tell your story. So he would be the guy sitting with me, writing the essay with me. And I remember us finishing to write it, and I was like, but Jess, that's too personal. Do you think the admission committee is going to, I'm being too personal in the... He said, no, that's how you're going to stand out. And I made it through. And that carried him all over the 2 years of MBA, work perspective. He's the kind of guy that will sit with me. I have a presentation, and I think that's the way to my... I feel like that I've really enjoyed him, also, seeing what contribution he brings. We are in two completely different fields. He's an artist, I'm like a typical accountant, but I promise you he's had the ability to, embed himself in everything that I do. So I love it, and it came as a surprise, and I feel, most of the time I really feel spoiled by it, yeah. I'll say, so 10 months into our marriage, we flew to Guadeloupe for my sister's wedding. So she got married in October 2017. We had gotten married in December 2016. So really 10 months into the relationship, we fly. And this is the first time as a married couple we're traveling, or I'm taking him into my environment, so my family. My sister had a very intimate wedding, intimate in an African way. So we were about 75 people, and we all fly, we all live together. There's the parents' house, the youngsters' house, whatever. And on our way to the civil wedding, we're on the highway, about to get on the highway, and JC starts driving the way he drives in South Africa, which is the African way. You break the rules and whatever. And me and my Canadian mentality, I'm like, a red light means stop, a no-go zone means no-go. And I think he did a U-turn in an area where we weren't supposed to be. Jessy is driving, I'm sitting on the passenger seat, and my two youngest sisters are in the back. We're running against the clock for Leslie's wedding. He does the wrong turn. I start yelling in the car, like I was hysteric, you know. And I think in that moment, Jessy had never been mad like that. But the events that followed that day, he completely shut down for the rest of the holiday. Like, meaning, he did not talk to me. It was civil wedding, white wedding, all the days that followed the holiday. He just wanted to lock himself in the room. And I remember in that moment doubting to say, but we left South Africa all the way to the Caribbean for my sister's wedding. You cannot overlook one instance. Yes, I yelled, you know, I was yelling in front of my sisters and you felt disrespected, but can you not make an effort? Because this is a once in a lifetime. Like, how often do I see my family? And I promise you guys, in that moment, I really asked myself, have I made the right decision? If you cannot, like, forgive me or even pretend for 5 days, that's all you need to do, 5 days of pretending, then you and I will be flying all the way to South Africa, and it's just gonna be you and I, and yet, let's fight, even in the flight. But then I promise you, I think my dad thought Jessy was sick because Jessy was nowhere to be seen for the rest of the holiday. And remember, we're a small group, we've all traveled, so he couldn't understand. And we're busy trying to make up stories because you're not going to tell an African dad, you know, we fought. That's why he's not pitching at any event. But my aunts are, you know, picking up what's happening. And guys, I felt so disrespected. I felt betrayed. And I think that was the moment, the first time that I really doubted whether this was going to work. Yeah, that's the one instance for me.
So I think the funniest part is the instance that you're actually speaking about is actually one that I was actually thinking about.
Oh, wow.
Must I share that one, or can I share something else?
Yeah, the same one.
Okay. So,
on how you resolved this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when she lashed out in the car, for me, I sat there and I went back and understood everything that we had gone through from the time that I had made that decision to leave Burundi and go to South Africa and live with her. And I looked at all the sacrifices that I had made in terms of leaving a stable company and then starting something new in South Africa, which we were struggling through. And then after that, assisting her through the MBA. And then after that, we got the opportunity to travel together. And in all this, my contribution was minimal. So I sat there and I understood that I've got a woman next to me that is able to assist me in a way that she does not belittle me. But that moment in the car, I sat there and I asked myself, is this my life? Like, I sat there and I asked myself, I'm like, her sisters were behind us. And I asked myself,
We traumatized the boy, Nana.
oh, for life. Like, they still struggle to even call, like,
yeah.
No, but I sat there and I said, if this is the sacrifice one has to make sure that they're happy in a relationship, I say no.
My mom had to intervene.
Yeah.
I think she was really worried.
Of course.
She was really worried. And she couldn't comprehend, like, what did you guys fight about that Jessy is in this state? And like, what happened? Why can you not ask for forgiveness? So I think she took us separately. She spoke to us separately. And I remember when we were at the airport on our way back. So what we did is we were flying from Guadeloupe, transit in Canada, and then back to Johannesburg. So we were on the same flight as my entire family. And we're sitting at the airport, and my mom is very angry at me. She has a way to look at. She gives me the eyes, and she's like, make an effort. I don't care what you do, but you're asking for forgiveness there. But in the background, she had already spoken to you as well.
Yeah.
So I think by the time we reached, I guess the power of a mother, I think just trying to bring us back to, there's nothing that you could have thought about that could justify this behavior. You need to respect each other, love each other. And she was like, Steffi, you need to learn how to ask for forgiveness. She kept saying, pray for God to help you be humble. Like, lower your ego. She's like, you need to learn how to, because I kept saying, Mommy, I don't care what I did. Nothing could justify him missing and being completely out of Leslie's biggest day, my sister's biggest day. I mean, that there was gonna be pictures. There's things that we're going to look back 20 years from now, and Jesse's gonna realize he wasn't there. So I said, you could fake it, and she said, no, learn how to lower your temper. So yeah, I think by the time, so we transit Montreal, by the time we reached London and everyone was gone, because everyone dropped off in Canada, you and I continued London, I think we were okay.
Not really okay. That's actually when we had our first conversation.
Yes, in the London airport.
Yes.
Yeah.
So from the time that we fought in the car.
Yeah. Imagine, guys, there was days. There was days.
No. Like, from there, I told myself that there is no level of comfort. There is no level of love that can take me to a place where I'm going to be disrespected to that level and belittled at that level to the point that I can pretend. So this is something that I actually I regret a lot for the sake of her sister Leslie and her husband, because I felt that I took something that I was not supposed to take. But for me, my personality, when I tap out, I tap out. So I feel guilty, but at the same time, I always get to a point where I'm like, it wasn't them, it was you.
Funny enough, the one that I enjoyed the most was the Catholic one, which I didn't expect, because I think I had this preconception of what the Catholic Church is, but they were a very open, modern type of Catholic church. So they really tackled subject the right way. So, like, for example, finances, and they even brought a lawyer to explain how prenups and marital contracts, like the risk of putting all your assets together separate. They spoke about sexuality. They spoke about contraceptive, is it the word in English? Yeah. So I was very surprised, because I didn't expect that. But I feel like the one thing that they probably didn't, when we say, for better or worse, through health and sickness or whatever, I don't feel like the part of what happens when one of you is sick, or how do you navigate that. And in our case was a case of mental health. So I would have wanted them to dig a little bit deeper, whether it's a condition like health when we're speaking about physical, or in our case was mental health. So I felt like no one really expanded on what it means to navigate that journey, because you make that vow that no matter what, you are going to make it work, and until the end of the road, until your last breath. And I felt like that moment, you're never prepared for what happens if one of you is sick,
Really enjoy both experiences in both Rivers Church and also the Catholic Church in Midrand. And why the aspect that I enjoyed when it comes to the Rivers Church is they went through the whole idea of love languages.
Yeah, they did.
And when they went through the love languages, it was actually at the same time that Steffi and I were reading the book. So it was something that we both understood. But the funniest thing happened. They would almost speak about what the female responsibilities are and the male responsibilities are, almost in a very typical way, the traditional way how things are done. And every time we left, I would look at Steffi, and Steffi would look at me and be like, when they were saying the woman, I saw you. And I was like, I saw myself, man.
Really?
And when they said the guy, Steffi, I saw you. And she was like, oh Lord, I saw myself too. So we got to a point where we realized when they're having the discussion, they make it so gender specific. And what was happening with Steffi and I was so fluid and so different. And it put a bit of question in terms of, should I be taking that stance as a man, and should she be taking that stance as a woman? And it brought more questions than it did answers.
Jessy has always been an expressive. So just to take, the lessons were important, the learnings were important, they were valuable, but don't make it gender specific.
After that, I used to even speak to the parents and say, somehow this is your fault, man. Like, we are together because you guys planted the seed